Robs Pujols of extra bases, 2 down.
So 2 home runs, 3 RBIs takes away probably 2 runs there defensively. That's 5 runs he's involved in. Matt Chapman.
Olsen skies one high and deep to right field toward the corner of Dell. Onto the track near the wall, leaps up and got it. Makes the catch for out number 3. Olsen. On he goes. Which is hit out towards center field. That's smoke. That is going to be into the bushes. A 2-run home run for McCutchen. And the Phillies take a 2-0 lead.
There's another 3-2 going again as Soto hits one high in the air, right center field. Brinson near the wall, leaps, and he makes the catch! Lewis Brinson makes an unbelievable catch over the wall in center field.
All right, everybody, welcome in to this latest edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. Of course, I am your host, Kevin, and you'll notice that we are down to 2 people today, but we are going to bring it home because we can do that, right, Nick?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Vince is camping, and I'm not really sure what Dan's up to, but
we don't want to know.
Yeah. In any case, just so I'm going to just say this right off the top, that I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm doing the show and also doing a fantasy football draft in the league that I'm in. So we are going to make it work. And Nick, how are you doing this evening?
Doing very well. I had a fantasy football draft earlier and had one last week. And, yeah, I'm fantasy football drafted out. I'm ready to go.
If you're not fantasy football drafted out by now, then you're a junkie. So
hundreds of mock drafts and just,
Yeah. So
I've been drafted for a friend today.
Yeah. In any case, today is the final day for the fantasy baseball regular season. And so that means that tomorrow the playoffs begin. So if you're into fantasy baseball, which of course you are if you're watching this show, then this is the best time of the year right here. And so Nick, how did your fantasy baseball teams do this year? Are you primed for playoff action?
No, I did not make playoff this year. I had a bad season, but like I said, I'm in a 14 team league where it's either trade or sink. And of course, we also said before they want your starters for their depth. And I was like, we're not doing that today, gentlemen. So, trades were odd and trades were difficult to be had.
So there you go. So in our league, the league that Vince, Dan, and I are all in, we all 3 made it to the postseason. And right now, Vince and I will begin mano a mano tomorrow in the playoffs. So as I was saying the last time we were on the show, there are some people here that know what we're talking about as far as fantasy baseball is concerned. And so we have a lot to talk about as far as fantasy baseball, but hang on, I'm on the clock here. All right, made my pick. So what I wanted to get into, Nick, is this free fall that the Yankees are currently. They won today, so they staved that off just a little bit. But their 15.5 game lead is now 5. And so I was always I was saying that the Yankees are going to pull out of this thing, and they're going to be fine. But it doesn't look that way right now. So what do you see going to the last month of the season here?
All right. Well, you can look at it like one of 2 ways. Number one, you can say, "Oh, the sky is falling. The Yankee season's over. Let's we had a good season. Let's pack it up and let's hope for next year." Or you can say, "Look, it's better to have that free fall now when you can actually take care of it rather than going into the playoffs and crap the bed. So get it, fix it, make the problems now so it's fixable. So when you get into the playoffs, you hit the stride. Like the old adage, the best team doesn't always win. The best team that day always wins. And when you're hottest at the right time of the year, if you're in the playoffs, you should be good to go. But right now they had a rough skid. I believe that they had pitching problems. Their bats went to sleep. The only bat that was awake the whole season was Aaron Judge. They even put
Benintendi. He homered again today.
Yes, he did. So he is 53rd. They even put Benintendi on the IL. So, that's baseball. Things happen. So, again, it isn't like football where it's a short season and you lose 4 games in a row and then your season is over. So, with baseball, you got 162 games. They can right the ship before the playoff starts. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. They could be the number one seed and then run away and hide. No. But actually, you don't want them to either, because then they're going to lull themselves to sleep. So it's good that they have this competitive, every game is playoff now. Now they're in playoff mode.
Yeah, so a lot of teams, as you mentioned, they're like the Dodgers. They've got 75.5 game lead or whatever it is. Yep. And so they can go to sleep the rest of the regular season. And so sometimes it's hard to flip that switch. The Yankees are not going to have that problem. And so maybe that will work out well for them. And I'm not a Yankee guy, but I have been saying all along that they are going to be okay. And the only concern that they have is now that they've ceded the home field if they play the Astros. And that's going to be a tough gig. I don't care what team you are. Any team that's going into Houston's going to have an issue.
Well, as long as they put away the trash cans, they'll be fine.
Yeah, right. So speaking of that, so the standings, I was wanting to get into this a little bit and ask you, which team that's currently in, Nick, do you think is in the most trouble?
Philly. I think Philly right now. They could have went out to Arizona. They could have took that series. They didn't. They haven't won a playoff series. Playoffs. They haven't won a road series in San Francisco, and I believe since 2009, if I heard that stat correctly. So they went out to the West Coast. They pool-holed themselves, and that's one joke you could make about Albert Pujols. You could take up the Pujols, but so they put themselves in a position where they were in a decent spot. They were a game and a half up on San Diego, and San Diego, we were just talking about a few weeks ago, they were floundering. They made all these moves and they didn't go anywhere. Now they're in the 6th spot. So now they have to maintain and hopefully overcome. I thought once Harper came back, it would have been a generator to wake up the bats. But the only one that's really been chugging along still has been Schwarber at the plate. And then with Wheeler going down, that didn't help him out.
Yeah, is that an equal sum when you get back Harper and lose Wheeler, or is that
it looks like
negative? Because you needed all the pitching you can get in the first place. Well,
see, the Phillies' motto should be, "We're Philadelphia. We don't believe in pitching." So it needs it. Apparently, it is so. They need everything to go right for them to do well. One misstep, and it's like the sky's falling. City, but yeah, I'd say Philly's in trouble in the East, and I'm sorry, in the NL. And did you want to take the AL, or did you want me to give my AL team?
Well, I'll let me just ask. So, if Philly's in trouble, who is going? You mentioned San Diego, but San Diego's already in,
right?
I believe. And so you're just because I don't see anybody from the National League jumping up and taking, because the Vince's Brewers are falling apart.
Well,
and so I think Philadelphia, unless they completely crash, they're going to be in the playoff.
Well, they are 2.5 up right now, and then how many games are left out of the regular season?
28 probably or so.
Well,
I'll say. I don't know if that's right about maybe 25.
one famous person did say bad things happen in Philadelphia, and I'm telling you what, that could happen. I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be shocked all at the same time. I've been a Philly fan my whole life, and I know how it goes. So Milwaukee could I could see conceivably get their pitching back on track. They could conceivably do it if Philly falls apart far enough.
All right. So I think the team that's in the most danger right now is in the American League, and that is the Cleveland Guardians.
I knew you were going to say that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was all in on Cleveland, if you remember the last show we did, and I believe you two were. You were too, right, Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
By far.
So but something is happening over there because their entire offense is in a coma, and because they've been shut out. I saw the statistics. They've been shut out like 3 times out of the last 4 games or something like that. And that's not the kind of number that you want to see when we're entering September baseball.
No, you never want it back into the playoffs.
No,
in any sport.
Right. And so the only thing that's saving them is because Minnesota has not been playing well, and Vince's Chicago White Sox, he was all in on them, if you remember. And Dylan, Cease came within 1 out of no hitting yesterday. And so White Sox are the team out of all these teams, as I don't believe Baltimore, as great a story as that is going to jump and take Toronto's spot. I don't think that's going to happen. And so if Cleveland's out and then Vince's White Sox are in. So that's my prediction there. And to get back to the National League, Nick, Mets, Braves. That's the race that we've all got to look forward to, because there's like a 2-game difference, maybe a 3 right now.
Yeah, it might. I'm going to stick with the Braves, but I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
it might be time for me to believe in the Mets. It might be time for me to believe in the Mets, but I'm going to stick with the Braves. I called it from the Braves from jump, and I'm going to stick with the Braves that they're going to come back and they're going to take this thing.
Yeah. So talking about Cleveland, because the Mets went in and they're playing Washington, the worst team in the history of mankind, maybe, and they've beaten the Mets 2 out of 3 this weekend. And so that is not helping your case when you need that extra step. You're playing Washington. That you should be able to check that off as a win.
Yeah, but you know what? It could be, we talk about trap games in football. This could be a trap series where they look at, it's just Washington, and they just go to sleep.
Right.
One team I want.
And that's fine if you're the Dodgers and have a 19.5 game lead or whatever it is. But if you only have 2 games, you need focus. So
now, hold on. I know one thing.
Hang on 1 second. Let me check this real quick.
Okay, so while he's doing that,
go ahead, Nick.
I'm going to pose a question.
Okay.
We mentioned Milwaukee. Could they come up and knock out Philly? In the AL, do you conceivably think at this point in the season Baltimore could come and knock out Toronto?
It's
the same lead, 2.5 games.
Yeah, it's conceivable, and I think Baltimore has been playing out of their minds, and they've got pitching, they've got young pitching, and so that's when you're getting down this late in the season, the young pitching kind of concerns me because they're not inexperienced, and they might not go late in games and stuff. So, and because I had Kremer, I used him over the weekend, and he did really well. And so he's out there, and we're going to talk about some pickups later, but he is a quality pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. And I would be, and I know maybe Graham Wallace, the baseball guru up there in Toronto, is watching. And if Baltimore was to pass Toronto, that's a great story. And so, but I don't see it happening right now. So, but and like Vince was saying, they made negative moves at the trade deadline. They didn't help themselves. And so, and unfortunately for Vince, I think Milwaukee, the wheels are off the train up there in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Okay.
So could
And I wrote a story, and you can go to Belly Up Fantasy right now because I talked about Josh Hader and his stunning slide off the mountain. And I don't recall a pitcher that has slid off the mountain quite like this guy has. And
we
so,
could say Mark Wohlers way back in the day.
okay.
He just got the yips and just forgot how to pitch. And it happened. It's all up here. It's all up here.
Yep, it is. And Milwaukee, I don't think that they saw that kind of collapse coming, but it certainly seems like they made the right move. Because his ERA, last I looked, was like 23 and something.
Oh, it's awful. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it was 23.14 at one point. I think he made an appearance since then. He pitched an inning, he didn't give up a run, so maybe it's 23 now.
Well, it's bad when they trade you. Yes, it's bad when they trade for you to be your closer, and then you pitch so poorly that they remove you out of that job.
Right, and they had no choice to do that because he was giving up not just 1 or 2 or even 3. He was giving up 5, 6 runs, and he got bombed by the Kansas City Royals. There's no way that an all-star closer should be getting bombed by the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, so, right now he's sitting at a 6.35 ERA with a negative.
And this is a guy that didn't give up a run until June. So this goes to show what kind of historically bad run this guy has been on.
It's a shame. It really is.
It is, and people talk about maybe because he just had during the summer he had a baby girl, I believe it was.
Okay.
And obviously there's something there that was distracting him. And it's his personal business. We don't want to get into any speculation or any of that stuff. But whatever is going on there, if you've got him still in fantasy baseball, I had him. I drafted him. I gave up a 5th round pick to get him, and I was until July. I was quite happy. He was the top closer in all of baseball. Now you can't trade a bag of chips and get him. So my point is, if you still have him in your fantasy baseball league, you need to do what I did: hold your nose and flush the toilet. Because if it's a dynasty league, maybe you don't make that move.
No, you just.
I've never been in a dynasty baseball league. I've been in, of course, in football, but or keeper league or any of that stuff. But if you're just and don't let this guy get in the way of you making the playoffs or advancing in the playoffs. Don't let that happen to you. All right. So I wanted to get into, and Vince was the one that suggested this topic, Nick, with us getting into the playoffs right now of the fantasy baseball, of course. And does this change if you're in the playoffs? Because we asked this question before about, have you changed your strategy during the season? And I believe you or I both said no. But now that the playoffs are beginning, do you see a way that you would change your strategy at this point if you were in the postseason?
It would depend on the matchup, I would say. And, you never want to go against the grain of like what got you there. So what got you there, and it worked. There's always room to be fluid, but I'm probably hard pressed to say no. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And then if there is a legitimate reason to tweak a guy here, make a move here, do that to stay alive in the playoff because the best day in fantasy sports is the next day. So do whatever you can to stay alive, but I'd say just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. The only thing that you have to be aware of, first of all, is because at least in ESPN leagues, I can't speak about Yahoo or any of the rest of those, but in ESPN leagues, the playoffs are 2 weeks long. Yeah. Each round. So that means that if you get down early on, don't panic. Don't be making moves, thinking that, oh crap, I need to make up 50 points by Sunday,
Yeah, look
because
at
you
the
got a week
schedule.
after that. You got a week after that. But at the same time, I've seen this happen where, because you're going to have added pitchers that you can use during the week, and I won't know what that number is until tomorrow, and I see how many pitchers you can use, and people kind of lose sight of that a little bit. And all of a sudden, it's Wednesday of next week, and you've used up all your starters already, and that number is a hard number before Sunday, right? So let's say it's 19, okay? So if you've used 19 pitchers by Wednesday of next week, then you got to go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you can't use a single starter.
You better hope your bats come through, or your bullpen.
Right. So don't let that happen. Be cognizant of that, and pay attention to where things are going. And if there's a guy that, and be aware of matchups now, is if a pitcher is, let's say, going up against Oakland, okay? If a guy's pitching against Oakland, you can inflate his fantasy value just a little bit, right? And you can use
because he should mow him down. Yeah.
Yeah. So be aware of what the matchups are, and if there's a pitcher that's going up against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, that's something you may not want to look at, and pay and add him.
Now, do you look at each individual pitching matchup versus batter, or do you just say blanket? Okay, this team, no, this team, yes. Like, let's say if you have a guy who's notoriously bad against one certain pitcher, do you sit him in lieu of A, somebody else, or B, nobody?
Well, I have never really paid attention to individual matchups unless somebody is doing something really crazy, and let's say he's gone 10 for 12 against this particular pitcher. All right, 1 second. I am on the clock again, so I am going to do that. Okay, I'm done. And so that's really never entered my mind. But if, let's say, you're going up against Houston, all right, in Houston, that's not a winning strategy. If he's your ace, that's a different situation. If you've got a guy, let's say, a 1A pitcher, let's say, I'm coming up blank right
Verlander.
now. But Verlander, let's say he's back. He's on the IL right now, but he's back.
Just hypothetical.
Hypothetical. If you've got Verlander, you're starting him no matter who the opponent is. That matters not one iota. If you've got Ohtani, you're starting him. That's what happened yesterday. You had Ohtani and Astros going up against each other, and it was a game that was 2-1 in 13 innings.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got an ace pitcher, the matchups matter not. Now it's a little different though if you've got a hitter, let's say, that's going up against Verlander and he's 0 for 22 lifetime.
Right.
That's not somebody you want in your lineup.
You can just say, well, sit him or he's due.
Well,
yeah, I go the former on that one. Sit him.
Yeah, I'm going to sit him. There's no upside to going up against something like that. And let's say he's a guy that's only maybe he's not your ace starter, right? But he's somebody maybe he's 20% owned. Go ahead and trade him in and get somebody else.
Like a Ranger Suarez. That's just the name.
Like a Ranger Suarez. Okay. And so there's your playoff strategies. Just to keep that in mind. And so what do you think about this, Nick? Let's say you're not in the playoff. Okay. So do you stop, like maybe picking up guys or whatever, and just let the guys that are in the playoffs? Do you let just bygones be bygones, and I'll just ride out the string? or
Oh yeah,
do
you have
still
to.
hit
You
up the
can't.
waiver wire?
No. What's the point?
I'm with
Why?
you. Yeah, I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Why are you going to do that to somebody else? Especially now, if you were really sticking to a guy you don't like in your league, well then yeah, if you want to do that. But no, otherwise, if you're, I know a lot of leagues where they'll do it. Well, at least they do in football, where if you're
Yeah.
out of playoffs, they don't let you, they somehow
Yeah,
block your waiver wire pickups.
that's a way to turn off guys, especially if you're in a league, right, that you've been playing in or whatever, and you get shut out the whole last month of the season. Why would you want to come back and do that again next year?
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say is that you should be able to do maybe for the waivers, inverse that so that the players that are in the playoffs have the first priority. I don't know if that's something as a commissioner. I might look into that because I am, in fact, a commissioner. Vince's is also, and see if we can switch that so that the guys that are in the playoffs. I don't make a lot of waiver moves anyway because we're in a league that doesn't have a lot of guys like the one that you're in.
Right.
But if you're in a league that's got maybe 14 or more people in it, and so I would seriously look into that. Switch that draft, the waiver order, so that if there's a guy that somebody in the playoffs wants. Oh, hold on one second. Here we go
Now,
again.
while you're doing that, the one caveat is if you're in that consolation bracket and you really
That's what
care,
I'm talking about.
yeah, and you really care about, well, do I want to be the 14th ranked team or the 12th? Well, at that point, who cares? Water's still wet. It doesn't matter. You're not going to win it. So who cares? But no, I would just say, look, if you're not in the top echelon of your league and you're not in it, you shouldn't be able to make moves because apparently you didn't do enough before to get it.
All right. So before we get, because we've got a lot of things to get into, and we are doing that, but we have a sponsor called True Classic, and we're going to listen to Dan Mader right now, and he's going to talk to us about these great shirts. And I could just put this in. My wife loved the shirts. Okay. Now, us playing this ad, probably we don't need to do that because if your wife loves them, what more do you need to know? Okay. But still, I'm going to play the ad, so here it comes.
Support for today's episode comes from True Classic. This brand new sponsor has the absolute best fitting t-shirts a man can buy. Finding the right t-shirt with a little bit of a dad bod is incredibly frustrating. Most t-shirts are either too tight on your gut or look way too big and boxy. You're not in high school anymore, and it's time to upgrade. True Classic has already helped over 2 million men finally get a better fit at an affordable price. Our listeners get access to the best deal they offer. For a limited time only, get 20% off with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at TrueClassic.com. Almost all men's t-shirts are designed to look good on skinny models with six-packs, but most of us aren't packing anything but a few beers. Fellas, you are wearing the wrong clothes. True Classic tees taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders. It's time to highlight your best attributes with a t-shirt you can always confidently throw on. True Classic doesn't just stop at tees. They are your one-stop shop for men's essentials. Super easy and simple to fill out your wardrobe. From polos and workout shirts with the same flattering fit to boxer briefs designed with a pouch to keep your bulge nice and comfortable. All their gear is top-notch quality at reasonable prices. It's about time you learn how to dress yourself properly. Upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic and get 25% off at TrueClassic.com with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Free shipping included on purchases over $100 and 100% risk-free guarantee with a 30-day return policy. Stay classy with True Classic. Your dad bod will thank you.
You're on mute.
All right, hold on. There we go.
There you go.
Okay. So Dan brings it like nobody else. But as I mentioned, my wife loves them. So there you go. Get over there. They've got great shirts. So All right. So, okay, hang on. I'm on the clock again. I did that. So, um, is there any other subjects before we get into some drops and holds and pickups and stuff like that, that, that maybe that this fantasy season maybe taught you, or maybe you're like, man, you know, I won't want to do that going forward. Anything
Uh,
in that
I would
area?
say probably for me would be to focus on more of the hitters than the pitchers, because you load up on pitchers, whether it be starters or your relievers, to fill in those gaps. I mean, I just wish I would have got better hitters, and I wish I would have taken more time with players in the beginning of the season, because I had Dansby Swanson, and he had a terrible start, and I cut him, and so maybe be a little more patient with that.
We've all had things like that happen, Nick, because Dansby Swanson, that's really a good guy to bring up, because as you mentioned, he did have a terrible, terrible first couple of months of the season. And if I had him, I probably would have done the exact same thing as you. And because they only play shortstop, and that's an issue to me. If you're not hitting and you only play one position, you got to go. And he actually picked it. He's really swinging the bat since the All-Star game. He might be the number one shortstop right now. And so one of the things that sometimes you got to make a move. It doesn't work. You just put it behind you and move forward.
One other thing, I wouldn't get into a 14-teamer anymore either. I'd stick to a 12. 14 is too much.
I've never been in a 14-team league before, and it's usually 12 or 10. And as I mentioned, if you're in a 10-man league, there's no need to – I know Vince likes to make trades and stuff like that. He likes some proposed trades that you're like, Vince, are you kidding me right now? But if you're in a 10-man league, 12 to a certain extent, you just go to the waivers and get somebody if you got a guy who's collapsing, right? So I didn't make a single trade this year, not one. And I had Vince offer me a couple of things, and I was like, no, Vince, no.
No, Vince.
No. And so as I said, you have to have you make mistakes. You talk about hitters, but I released Perez from the Rangers early in May, right? And all he turned out to be was an all-star caliber pitcher. So sometimes you make moves and it doesn't work out, but hopefully more moves work than don't. So that's what I would say about that. And so we move to the portion where we talk about who are we looking to either pick up or hold or drop. And so let's start with the drops, because I think that's one of the funnest things to do is talk about who we're going to flush down. There I go. I'm doing that. And so and I know we like to drop kick this guy, even though he's got the same name as you, Nick, and that's Nick Pavetta. Okay.
Yep.
All right. He's a guy that I actually drafted, and he did all right for a while, but he's 50% owned. Now he has a calf injury issue. I guess it looks like it's going to be okay, but he only went 3 innings against Texas, and that's not. And he has Tampa Bay on Wednesday. That's not
a good matchup.
That's not a matchup. That's a winning matchup. So he's the first guy that I'm sending to the other side. That's first guy. So who's the first guy that you're sending? Say la vie, have a nice life. Don't call me because I'm not home.
Eric Hosmer. I've given up. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. He's hurt. You hate to drop a player when he's hurt, but he hasn't really done me a whole lot of favors since I had him. He was good for a while, but then ever since that trade to Boston, he just kind of just nosedived. So I'm gonna drop him to the curb and cut bait and try and find somebody else. Now the trade deadline has come and passed, so I'm off of that. So now I gotta go to the scrap heap, as they say, and try and find some treasure.
Okay, so we'll move to the treasure portion in a minute. Another player that I have absolutely given up on is Ke'Bryan. Is that how you pronounce his name? Ke'Bryan Hayes, third baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay, he's at 66.8% owned, but he has no hits this week. 0. Zilcho. That's the same amount of hits I have. All right. Wow. And he's got a shoulder issue. So there's really probably not a whole lot of reason to have many Pittsburgh Pirates in your fantasy roster in the first place. But 66.8% is way, way too high for a caliber of Hayes's. Oh, man. It's my last
He's
pick.
up again.
I'm up again. Let's say
time to get his kicker.
And I'm done. The draft is done, so we're good. So that's my second guy. I'm gonna get rid of is Ke'Bryan Hayes. Who's your second?
Andrew McCutchen. He's got 2 points in the last six games. So he's ranked 10th in the ESPN positionally wise. Got average 2.2 points, but he's rostered in 53% of the leagues, but he's not doing a whole heck of a lot the past week. So I would dump him and try and find somebody else, even though he's got 241 points overall on the season.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to come in right behind you, Nick. And Vince, if you're listening, I'm sorry that we're pile driving onto your Milwaukee Brewers, but the next player I have is Luis Urias, who plays second, short, and third base. You should like that combination a lot, but he's had just 5 at-bats in the last 4 games, okay? So that means that they're not playing him. And he had 2 hits on the 31st, but like I said, he's had 5 at-bats since then. You've got players on the waiver wire, no matter how large your league is, that have players that got more than 5 at-bats this week alone. And so there was a point where I really liked Luis Urias, but that point is now past. And so I'm getting rid of him. And all right. So any other players that you're looking to flush?
Steele, the pitcher from the Cubs. He pitched decent, but each day the past 7 days he's gotten less points overall. Right now he had 12 points in his last start, which is it's okay, but when you're a starting pitcher, you shouldn't be getting 12 points. You should be getting over that. Justin Steele rather. So I would drop him. Plus that he is day to day with an injury. So that'd be the prime reason why I'd be dropping him.
Okay. Okay, so St. Louis is playing excellent baseball as a team. However, Dylan Carlson is not part of that mix at the present time. And he's at 53% owned. He has 1 hit this week and has been out of the lineup 3 games this week. And he only qualifies as an outfielder. All right, so if you got a player that only qualifies as an outfielder and has been out of the lineup 3 days, that's a bad sign, and he's a guy that needs to go.
Okay. Would you drop this guy?
All right.
Okay. I'm going to give you his stats. I'm not going to give you his name.
There's one more guy I want to make sure I mention because he has given me heartburn to the highest maximum, so I want to make sure I mention him.
Now, this is a pretty prevalent player. I'm just going to give you his stats. And I'm going to say, would you drop him, yay or nay? And then I'm going to reveal his name. So this is going to be the blind resume portion.
Okay.
This guy is 229 fantasy points overall. His slugging percentage is .339. He's batting .234 with 7 home runs, and he's got 16 stolen bases with 44 RBIs, and he's owned in 85%, and he's the 11th ranked position player. Would you drop this player?
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say probably I'm dropping him because he doesn't do anything particularly well to me.
Okay. Well, this guy also has -1 points over the past week, and that guy is Whit Merrifield.
That is we've brought him up before, and ever since he's gone up there to Toronto, the train has stopped. There's no coal, there's no oil, there's no
there's no steam.
I don't know what they run the trains on up there in Canada, but apparently his car or his truck or whatever it is he has is off to the side of the road. Okay. So so I'm with you on him. Whit Merrifield, he's a player that went pretty high in the draft. And so you're sorry to see a guy like that just disappear. But that's exactly what's happened to him. And the last player I want to bring up to drop, okay, because he has boot kicked me, all right, too many times, and that is Sean Manaea of the San Diego Padres. All right. He is owned in 85% of leagues. It's a little down now because I actually booted him. All right. And he's faced the Dodgers. He's gotten bombed by the Dodgers. And he faces the Dodgers again on Friday.
Yeah, you probably would not want to pitch him.
No, you're not going to want to pitch him. And he has, even against other teams, he has not. He started off very well. And so you need to kick him. All right. So that's my cross the bear. I drafted the man and I held him until yesterday. Okay. And now I had to say, gotta go. All right, so we've cleared out some of the trash. All right, we swept it out. The garage is clear now. And so, Nick, you mentioned about bringing in some treasure.
Yes, I did.
All right, so who is the first treasure player that you're looking to bring in right now?
Well, his team's not playing great, but he is over the past 7 days. Nick Gordon. He can play outfield, second base, and shortstop over the past 7 days. He has got 27 points. If you have a roster spot needed to fill any of those positions, I would go out and I would get Nick Gordon. His biggest attribute right now, he's got 82 hits. So the man, as Billy Bean says, he gets on base.
Yeah, he gets on base. So I have a guy that may not be available in many leagues, and he's a guy that I actually drafted, and he's been hurt, and he plays for a team that has been sorry. We talked about it, and that's the Angels, and that's David Fletcher. He plays second base, shortstop, and he's at 42% owned, so he's probably not available a lot. But if he is, he has 2 hits, right, in a game in his last 2 games. And so he has turned things around just a little bit. And anytime you're in a lineup that's got Trout and Ohtani, you might want to take a look at that. And if he's not available, then I got another Angel I'm going to bring up that's at 13% owned, and that's Lewis. And I'm going to try real hard not to goof this up. Ringafo or something.
Rigafo.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell you what, you speak on him, and I'll try and find his name, and I'll try.
All right. So he plays second base, shortstop, third base. All right. He has 5 hits in 5 of his last 6 games, and so As I said, he's at 13% owned. Ringifo. That's Rengifo.
Oh, okay.
You can do what you want to do with that, but he's a guy that's very available, and so if you need infield help, he's there. And while you're looking at that, I'm going to come up and recommend a guy that Ha-Seong Kim from the Padres. He's at 13%. He's in the lineup every day. He had 2 hits on Friday, and he's got he can do some things. He's got stolen bases. He can hit some few home runs for you. But the key thing is he's in that lineup since the all-world shortstop is suspended for the rest of the season and in the next year.
What was his name again?
What's that?
What was his name again that was suspended?
Oh, man, what was his name? The guy that's riding motorcycles and
Oh,
and doing cartwheels
yeah. That guy.
That guy. Yeah.
That guy.
And then he gets infected with ringworm.
Apparently.
Oh yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and so
we all have.
Yeah. And first thing I ever thought of is let's reach for the steroid. All right.
Yeah. Well.
So
anyhow, bigger is better, I guess, right, Kevin?
I guess so.
I want to talk about a guy who his name is synonymous with the Apple phone, but if you go out and get Jose Siri, okay. He's always scored 83 points on the season, but his last 7 games he scored 23 of them. So he's doing pretty good. His only negative drawback is that he only plays the outfield. So if you need to solidify,
if you're hitting, that's okay. If you're not hitting, just playing outfield, don't make it.
Correct. Yeah. So in his last 7 days, he's got 7 hits and 14 at bats. And I'm sorry, not hits. I'm sorry. He's got 8 hits in his last 14 at bats. So again, you need outfielder.
Doesn't get much hotter than that.
No.
Okay, so all right. So the last piece of treasure I'm going to bring in is from the Baltimore Orioles. All right, and that's Ramon Urias. I had a Urias earlier. We're flushing, and we have another Urias. We're saying, come on in, and that's Ramon Urias. He's at 9.6%, but he plays second, short, and third. He's had hits in 5 straight games, including 2 hits today. So if you have a need, like I was mentioned before on the infield, because Baltimore is pushing, he'll be in the lineup all the time. So if you need a player, go get him.
All right. I got one last guy.
Any other treasures we have?
Yes, one last guy.
Okay.
I got Gavin. Don't forget to fold your sheets out of Chicago, out of the White Sox.
Okay.
He's a triple threat. He can play you DH, first base, and outfield. He's got 155 points on the season, but he scored 21 in the last 7 games. He's got 3 hits on 16 at bats. He's only batting 188, but he's scoring 6 RBIs and 4 runs. So again, he's getting on base. He's got a 391 OBP. So he gets on base.
Okay. All right. So the last subject we're going to bring up on this Belly Up Fantasy Live baseball show is players that may be treasure. They may be dust in the bottom of your garage. Okay. And I'm holding these guys until I make a determination of which way we're going to go here. All right. So do you have any players that you're just like, I'm going to hold this guy and see what happens?
Well, there are many of those guys, but right now, I've
got some pitchers.
Okay,
that I can bring up.
I picked up one guy. There's the team, the Reds. They may not be doing great on the field as a team, but individually they got some pretty good players. So TJ Friedl. He's been doing well. He's got 16 points this last 7 days, and Seth Brown. I have kept him around all season, and when I need some production off the bench, he's there for me. So those are two guys that I'm going to keep around. And then I picked up Nick Prado,
Okay.
first baseman from
Mhm.
the Kansas City Royals. Last week he had a much better week than this week, but again, tail end of the season, I'm just going to let it ride out and then see what happens.
Hey, fair enough. So the players that I'm holding on to is first one is Jose Quintana of the St. Louis Cardinals, and he had 5 points against Cincinnati, but Tuesday he faces the Washington Nationals.
Oh, that should be a
So
win.
yeah, so he hasn't really pitched as well as I thought he would when he got traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. Certainly not as much as his teammate Montgomery over there. And I'm sure the Yankees, talking about the Yankees, are very unhappy that they traded away him. Okay. But anyhow, and
Who did they
fortunately
trade
for
him
me,
for?
he's on my team. Okay. So yay, Montgomery. All right. So that worked out well. A player that's been up, he's been down, he's been up, he's been down. That's Pablo Lopez. He's at 92% owned. He pitched 4 innings the other day. That was it. And he's got the Mets on Saturday.
Mm-mm.
And
Tough
so
lineup.
that may not be a recipe for success. But I've ridden him this long, so I think I'm going to take that maybe to the end. I'm not sure. And guy today, Lucas Giolito, okay, of the White Sox. He's got a 5.27 ERA. He had 5 fantasy points against Minnesota. All right. And but his next start is versus Oakland on Friday. So if you've got Lucas Giolito, don't be looking to
healthy.
flush him just yet.
That's healthy. Nice comeback.
Yeah, 5.27 ERA doesn't help your case, but Oakland does. All right. And so the last guy that's really kind of collapsed, and that's Adolis Garcia over there for my Texas Rangers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
He's at 87.8% owned, and he's only 2 for his last 21.
Yeah, I know. I have him.
But he'd homer Thursday. And so he's a guy that can snap out of it with the blink of an eye. So if I've got him, I'm not dropping him just yet. And so those are my holds. Do you have any others, Nick?
I would say I think I went through them all.
Okay.
I do like Corey Dickerson
Okay.
from St. Louis. Over the past 10 days, he scored 10 fantasy points. He's got 6 hits on 15 at bats with a 400 average. So that's nothing to sneeze at there. I did mention earlier the Cincinnati Reds. I got Kyle Farmer. He's had a bad week.
I've had him. Right.
He's
He's
bad
swinging
week.
the bat.
Well, he's swinging the bat. I don't know for who, but it ain't for me because he only got me 1 fantasy point in the past 7 days.
Okay, maybe that explains why I dropped him as well.
He's 4 for 21, so that might be a good indicator.
So I thought he was doing much better than that. I dropped him because I needed some other players, but okay. So it's a good thing I dropped him then. That's
Jose Iglesias, right? And then Jose Iglesias is my last guy. Over the course of the season, he's got me 227 points, but in the past 7 days, he's got me 2. But he's been solid, so
he goes into the hold category.
Yeah, he goes in the hold category.
Okay. Plus, Jose Iglesias, that's got to be one of the great names in baseball, doesn't it?
Well, I just picked up one guy, Michael Taylor. Over the past 7 days, he got me 33 points. So he's been solid.
With that.
No,
that.
Can't.
All right, so that pretty much brings into the station this episode of the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. And we've put out quite a bit of fantasy information. And so we hope you enjoy that. And Nick, where can people find you out there? I know that football is getting ready to get really, really
Yeah,
involved. So I know you're
that's
out there. So just let us know
yeah,
where
that's
you
my
are.
baby.
That's
So
right.
you can find me at tssfantasy.com. You can find our podcast on any of the listening platforms that you are most partial to. And we partner with Belly Up as well and Underdog Fantasy Sports as well.
Okay, so you can always find me at Kevin62 WILSEA on Twitter, and you can always go to the Belly Up Fantasy website. I actually have 2 stories over there right now. The first one where I talk about players to pick up. All right, and as I mentioned earlier, I talk about what is happening to Josh Hader, and if you have him, as we talked about earlier, you've got to let him go. You've got to. Okay. Don't wait around any further. If you're in the playoffs, if you're out of the playoffs, then it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. So you can hold on to him if you want. But there's that article. It's over there, as I mentioned, on the Belly Up Fantasy website. And I'm also on the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show. That'll be it used to be the Dynasty edition, but we're merging that. And at Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right. So first Sunday of the football season is 1 week away. So, and there are tons of stuff going on Belly Up on the websites and podcasts. And as you mentioned, Nick, TSS, and there's so much going on. You definitely don't want to get left out. There are football shows going on maybe nightly. So just get over there, join and Belly Up Fantasy and get on those podcasts. As I mentioned this morning, all this information is free. Okay. It's not like you go to ESPN and you have to pay an extra fee, right? ESPN Plus.
Yeah, well,
Don't do that.
we're not Belly Up Plus.
That's right. We're not Belly Up Plus. Maybe at some point in the future that might happen.
As long as we're not Belly Up Minus,
That's
we're
all
okay.
you have to have is Belly Up. That's like having Superman in your corner. Okay. All right. So that's going to be it for this episode of Fantasy Baseball. And for those that are in the playoffs, starting tomorrow, as I mentioned, good luck to everybody. If you made it to the playoffs, that is solid. Congratulations, everybody out there. Wishing you the best of luck, and we'll see you the next time.